Hey guys, Level Cap here, and today DICE have gone into much greater detail regarding the weapon balance changes coming with the 5.2 update in Battlefield 5. Several weeks ago, they outlined weapon changes with graphs showing how bullets to kill would change over range. That post also mentioned changes to other weapon mechanics like recoil, rate of fire, ammo counts, and more. The response to that post was heavily negative as players thought it was basically the return of TTK 2.0 from this time last year. For those of you who may not remember TTK 2.0, it's where DICE made a sweeping blanket change to the time to kill in Battlefield 5, released it to the game, the community absolutely hated it, had to suffer through it until DICE then patched it back out of the game. It was not a good time for Battlefield 5. So DICE is trying to get ahead of that with their extremely detailed post today made by Battlefield Community Manager Adam Freeman. To quote the post, "With the changes to damage at range, our goal is to ensure that taking damage in a gunfight is more predictable, with clearer engagement distances per weapon type and more time to react to damage on average at further ranges." They use examples to illustrate how frustrating Battlefield 5 can be when you're getting gunned down by a Sten from 100 meters away, or getting killed by somebody behind you at range with no chance to react. Speaking from experience, getting these kinds of kills can be very satisfying. But being on the receiving end of a random death to some guy 100 meters away with a gun that's supposedly to be effective in close range, especially when there's no time to react, is incredibly frustrating. Veteran Battlefield players are probably used to it because, well, that's just the nature of Battlefield. The maps are big and constantly expose you to angles you don't expect to get shot from. It is an area of frustration for lots of players. It could also be argued that unpredictable gameplay is more related to map design than it is weapon damage models. But despite these seemingly drastic changes, DICE's goal is not to eliminate long-range gunfights. To quote the post, "You don't expect them to be a threat, and when you die at 100 meters from an SMG, it feels wrong and frustrating. Adjusting the hits that a short-range weapon needs to kill at longer range still allows for a skilled player to make those hits, but also gives the enemy an opportunity to respond to fire and take action. Our expectation is they still lose the fight, but that you're at least able to participate and learn from the experience versus simply being left with the frustration of being deleted. This is also why we do not want to reduce the accuracy of weapons in order to affect range, as shooting at targets and the gun not hitting is even more frustrating for you. How we've approached and revised our current behaviors in the game is intended to reduce the frustration for both players." So what exactly is DICE doing here? Well, first you'll need to understand that TTK, time to kill, isn't just a measure of how much damage each shot does. It's the combination of damage, rate of fire, bullet velocity, range, recoil, and a bunch of other factors that can all be tweaked in parallel to change on value without increasing or decreasing the overall time to kill. So DICE can change the bullets to kill at a certain range without directly increasing or decreasing the weapon's time to kill at that range, provided that these other parameters are compensated for. In the post, they use two examples. First, the STG. The original bullets to kill on the graph show the gun requires one extra bullet at under 10 meters, and then again at 30 meters and past 75 meters it goes up to extra 2 bullets to kill from its current value. On paper that sounds like a flat time to kill nerf, but DICE are also reducing the STG's recoil from 0.67 to 0.5. So they're making the STG's most effective range 10 to 30 meters and offsetting the increased bullets to kill ranges beyond that by reducing the recoil. They say the net result is about 16 milliseconds of difference between the current TTK and 5.2's changes. Given the Battlefield 5's average range for a firefight, also according to the post, is 22 to 25 meters, it sounds like the STG will still be a dominant weapon at its intended range, if not a bit stronger due to the reduced recoil while maintaining essentially the 5.0 damage model. The other example is the M1928A1 Thompson. The original graph shows it going from 6 shots to kill to 10 shots to kill at the 25 meter mark. This looks like a dramatic nerf, and well, it kind of is. With the 5.2 update, its vertical recoil is being reduced from 0.7 to 0.42, which is massive, and its horizontal recoil drops from 0.775 to 0.3875. According to DICE's math, the actual frames to kill for the weapon change from 20 at 10 meters to 21 at 15 meters. So in the Thompson's intended range, you'll spend one extra frame firing the gun to kill somebody. And being measured at 60 frames per second, that's a 1/60th of a second difference in TTK. Basically, the gun's gonna do less damage and require more accuracy from the user's part, and you'll have the same results. So this actually should, in theory, increase the skill ceiling. The new post makes it clear that DICE are trying to rebalance the weapons to work in more specific ranges. Each class will get weapon nerfs and buffs to make some of the less popular weapons more viable and bring other weapons down to earth a little bit. The examples DICE have been using are the big dramatic ones. For other weapons, there actually might not be that much at all that actually changes. The patch notes for 5.2 will list all the weapon changes, so we'll know soon enough exactly what's changing. DICE also went into further detail regarding the new enemy UI and some changes to spotting mechanics. Basically, if you're within 15 meters and looking at an enemy, an icon will appear above them. Within 5 meters, visible enemy players will have an icon over their head even if they're not center screen. The reaction to these changes has been fairly mixed. DICE's goal is to improve the general soldier awareness and particularly the enemy identification in the most lethal combat ranges in order to reduce your frustration from not seeing things that were right in front of your eyes. They expect that this will not hurt flanking because, well, if you're flanking, that means enemy players aren't looking in your direction, and you should also have a slightly easier time of identifying enemy players when flanking. In those CQB ranges where the icon is most likely to be visible, you're also most likely to already be dead if you didn't spot an enemy player that's that close already, so the icon shouldn't make that big of a difference. Ultimately, DICE wants to keep making visually complex maps. That's what makes them look realistic and impressive. The trade-off is that players will blend into the environment more than when compared to less detailed looking maps. The new UI elements, according to DICE, help to address visibility without compromising on DICE's high standards for visuals and map design. Players blending into the environment is also only one small part of Battlefield 5's visibility issue. The foliage on Pacific Storm, for instance, fully hides players. The new UI will help in those situations. Finally, DICE did address the possibility of doing a CTE for Battlefield 5. Unfortunately, DICE doesn't have all the resources in the world to devote to every aspect of the game. They have to prioritize things in order of importance. They would like to do a CTE and they think it would be worth doing, but they can't commit to it right now. CTE would have been a great place to introduce these kinds of changes to the game without drawing the ire of the community. It's basically impossible to gauge these kinds of changes without actually experiencing them firsthand. Sadly, it's not happening for these TTK changes, so we'll just have to experience them once they're available in the full game. Now, for me personally, I like a lot of the ideas mentioned here. I believe they come from a good place. For a long time, I've argued for better map design and a more formulaic approach to map layout, similar to what was offered in Battlefield 3. But it appears that DICE intends to depart from that to pursue more realistic maps. To make these more open format maps work better, a lower time to kill at long range is very important. The days of nuanced peeking meta may belong to the past, and a bigger emphasis on consistent aiming and distance positioning are taking over, or taking its place. However, DICE is still trying to fix their track record, and asking us to take their word for it when saying these changes will make things better is obviously not going over well with the community. It's sad that CTE isn't in the game right now because with a weapon change that is this drastic, it would make so much sense to do it in a place where you can gauge the community reaction. Again, we don't want a repeat of TTK 2.0 with DICE introducing something, the community hating it, and then having to patch it out a month or 2 months later. It's really bad for the environment because it's basically getting the community used to one format, changing that format, them getting used to that format, and then changing it back again. It's very, very disruptive, and it shows that DICE might not know what they're doing. So hopefully this time around, it is a good change. They commit to it, and I think personally it'll give them a little bit more flexibility with weapon design and map design. So I'm hopeful for it. I know a lot of people out there are very much on the fence or hate the idea of it, but it's really one of those things that we're not going to know how good or bad it is until we play it firsthand. Thanks for watching, guys. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about all this stuff, and I'll see you next time. This is Level Cap, signing off.